All right. This thing looks gnarly. We'll see. Yeah, you're right.
I just go to a cheaper rent.
What's your rent?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to have a big old building.
Yeah.
Big old shop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mango passion fruit today.
We're gonna bring a little passion session to the pod today.
A little mango edge, as long as it doesn't have apricot in it.
Heavy on the passion. Did you experience the haboob yesterday?
The haboob. Oh, the dust storm.
The haboob.
Is that what you're calling it?
Well, there was a haboob on the Palouse yesterday.
Is that what they call it? Is there?
I guess there's a term for it.
Is that really a term?
Yes, haboob.
Oh, so it's not a racist thing. It sounded very racist.
Does it? I should look it up. I don't want to get us canceled. Yeah. But I heard someone call it a haboob.
Yeah, well, that could have been racist.
I hope
very
not.
much. Ooh, that thing's going. You better throw a couple more pieces on there.
No, dude, a haboob is... But via Wikipedia, a haboob is a type of intense dust storm carried by the wind of a weather front.
All right, cool.
Haboobs occur regularly in dry land regions throughout the world.
Yeah, I didn't get hit by the haboob. I got hit by some wind for sure.
Haboob is Haboob.
Couple pieces.
Yeah.
No, I did not get hit by the actual haboob. I got hit by the outskirts of the haboob. It was very windy, a little bit of rain, blew a couple of things over here. Nothing too drastic, though. It was pretty mild. Although I did get a warning on my phone that said if you find yourself caught in the dust storm, they called it. They didn't call it a haboob. Just pull over and turn your headlights off. And I'm like, why would you turn your headlights off? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what if...
It's kind of an interesting protocol.
Yeah, like what if somebody's cruising along and can't see you because you turned your headlights off and slam into you? That sounds bad. It did not sound like a winning combination. But in any event, I was not driving around. Although Lena did text me and say, hey, am I okay to drive home? Because she was at Crumble Cookie with her friends or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, if it gets bad, just pull over.
Have you sampled a crumble?
I have. And if I was, my former fat kid inside was screaming to high heaven how great it was.
Yeah, I get the appeal. I recently had one again, and I didn't think it was as good as the first time I had one. I think they're overfrosted.
Yeah.
They're overfrosted, and
I don't know. I sure like
they
frosted.
kind of taste a little bit like a generic sugar cookie, a little bit.
Well, it probably depends on which one you buy.
Right. I had a couple that I tasted. Yeah. But
the truth's coming out. You had a couple. You didn't have one.
Yeah, I did. I was tasting them all. I just wasn't that impressed, honestly.
It's a dark path, Tim. Watch out. I'll go to a meeting with you. I'll be there for support.
Yeah.
Oh man, oh God, those are good. And they're freaking huge.
Yeah.
Like it's giant. Like, what are you doing?
So a friend of mine said there's 1,600 calories in a crumble cookie, and I said, no way. And I looked it up. Take a guess. I know what it is now.
Well, they're all different, aren't they?
Right, but it's
is there an
generic.
average?
Yeah, say the chocolate chip cookie.
Does it got frosting on it?
No.
Chocolate chip cookie, no frosting? Mm-hmm. 800 calories.
You're close enough. They're like 700.
Yeah.
Depending. Give or
take.
take.
That frosting
is
like...
Not 1,600. 1,600 is like a pizza.
But what's the... it's a small pizza. What's the... I'd like to know what the standard one with a freaking 10 tons of frosting that they normally put on them is. And I bet you that could approach 1,600. Because frosting is like ridiculously high in calories.
Yeah, frosting's all sugar and cream
straight
and
calories,
butter,
baby.
right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what you make it with, but yeah, in general. Have you ever made homemade frosting?
Mm-mm.
Back in the day, man, my ex-wife liked to make that and taught me how to make it. And dude, it's like powdered sugar and cream cheese, if it's a cream cheese-based frosting, or butter. That's it. Like, no wonder this shit's so high in calories.
Have you
it's
ever
like just straight fucking fat sugar.
You got a little Renegade down there.
I got a Renegade? What kind of Renegade we got running? Oh, that's the second one.
It's probably that time of year where they're trying to get some more.
Yeah, I saw one when I was chopping up the wood.
Yeah.
At the little hobos, is that what those are? Or wolf spiders, or whatever?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't like dealing in the spider business.
Spiders don't bother me for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't think twice. Now, I wouldn't want one like crawling across my face or something, but not my bag. Not worried about it.
God, where was I going with that? So there are 700 calories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exaggeration. Is that what you're going with?
No, I had something I wanted to add to that. I lost it.
Did you want to compare it to another thing of calorie content?
No.
When you start paying attention to those things, it's pretty incredible, really.
Oh, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that you can consume and how many calories in it versus how well it sustains you versus other things.
Right. And sugar's a sneaky one. If you haven't started looking at what's on the labels of your food, it's amazing what sugar gets put into stuff that you wouldn't recognize. Like Joel is going through the sugar revolution right now.
Is he?
Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I hadn't had that conversation with him.
Yeah. So his doctor had some high sugar levels or something, and they were worried he might be like pre-diabetic or maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I think,
there was a red flag from the doctor.
Becky's got the same thing. I think she's pre-diabetic.
Yeah, there was a red flag from the doctor, and Joel started becoming very aware of his sugar. And he's like, dude, I'll eat all day long with sugar. And now he's like anti-sugar and trying to be low on sugar. And he's already lost like 25 or 30 pounds.
It ain't that hard.
Just because. In a typical American diet, like say you had toast and eggs for breakfast, you're getting probably more carbs than protein. And a carb is eventually converted to sugar. So that's another guise for sugar is like if it says carb and then additional sugars, your carbohydrates all eventually break down to sugars.
Yeah,
okay.
100%.
So a carb is a sugar. And then say for lunch a person had a sandwich. Again, you probably have more carbs than sugar. And then potentially for dinner they have pasta, which is largely carbs, So if you're not aware of what's going on, you could be intaking 80% of your diet could be sugar. And
I've been.
I don't feel good on sugar personally.
When you get used to being off of it, then you go back on
Except
it.
for the short-term sugar high, which could be kind of nice, like an ice cream.
It's like a trip to heaven. But no, I've been a carb conscious human being for 20 years.
It does a lot.
I was one of the earlier people I knew that really paid attention to it. Mm-hmm. I went. I can't remember how long. It was a long time. Like I think I went like 5 to 10 years somewhere in there without having any sugar. Period. Like none. Like no version of sugar. I don't want anything to do with it. Get it away from me. Like, and I loved candy. Like just little bits here and there. And man, whew, it was a dark path I was on there. But it's sugars in everything. Like between just regular granulated sugar, corn syrup. What else? God, there's like 3 or 4 main things that are in like everything. High fructose corn syrup. Yeah. It's amazing how when you start going back and looking at things, you're like, this is in everything. Mm-hmm. Like everything.
Yeah. And I'm similar to you. It was like my first or second year of college. It was probably actually my first year of college. I got really chubby my first semester. And I was just plowing down dorm food, and I went back home for Christmas, and my friends were like, you're fat. And I was like, what? I'm not fat. And they're like, no, you're fat.
Fat shaming, huh?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I was like, all of a sudden, I was like back to working out, back to paying attention to what I ate.
I'm 100% pro fat shaming. Dude, it works.
Yeah.
Look in the mirror, somebody tells you you're fat, and you go, oh man, maybe I need to do something about that.
You got to have checks and balances for sure.
You do.
Checks and balances.
Well, and the funny part is everybody knows it, but they don't say anything to you, right? Everybody knows you're putting on weight and going, bro, like slow down. Those that care about you should be honest with you.
Yeah. Honest friends we like honest friends. I've always considered myself a pretty honest friend. So anyway, long story short, I was around that time where I started becoming aware of sugar, and so that's a long time, 15 years.
Right.
2024. I graduated college in 2011. This would have been 2007 or 8. So it's crazy.
Well, and honestly, a large portion of your ingestion of it is bread. Like, because you think about it, you're talking about, you had a sandwich.
Bread, pasta,
right?
Yeah.
Your grains.
Things that are very normalized in a lot of people's diets. Like,
well, but what I can't help but wonder is what were those things like 200 years ago? Was bread maybe healthy 200 years ago and now it's not?
Yeah.
Was pasta maybe healthy 200 years
There's
ago?
There's people that go to Europe and they'll eat pasta and bread and they'll feel a lot different. And I guess that's because Europe outlawed some ingredient that...
It's GMOs. Genetically modified organism.
Yeah, but there's like a specific thing in the process that Europe is outlawed and the United States allows, and I guess that irritates a lot of people's guts. So some people experience in Europe that they can go over there and eat breads and pastas and digest them a lot better. And you're still getting carbs, but I guess they're easier to digest for some people.
Well, the wheat that we have here is GMO wheat.
Right.
And it's out. You can't have GMO wheat in Europe.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, that's what it is.
Yeah, that could
it's
be.
the difference in the actual grain itself. Our grains have been manipulated to withstand Roundup or whatever and operate in a broader functional environment so they can grow larger scales of it. And from my understanding is that's actually the problem.
Yeah.
Like when you look at what people ate, 200, 300 years ago, it was bread. They ate bread, they ate grains, they ate meats, and that's it. And
dairy, right?
And dairy.
But their dairy wasn't
homogenized and
pasteurized
or whatever they do to it today.
Yeah. Do you ever drink raw dairy?
I've never had raw dairy.
Oh, dude, it's great.
I've never raw dogged the dairy.
The first time I got on the raw dairy game was when I was in my 6-month stint in Oregon, Roseburg, Oregon, where I later to come to find out that's where the born and raised guys are out of.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did 6 months in Roseburg, Oregon, and
was it hippie-like? Did you?
Yeah, it's an interesting area.
Did you change your garb a little bit?
No, I didn't change my garb. I don't think.
I bet you did a little.
I did drive a Toyota FJ. That was pretty cool.
Oh, there you go.
But Roseburg was a very interesting little melting pot because part of it was like Western Oregon hippie-ish, and part of it was like logging country, St. Mary's-ish.
Yes.
So it was like a melting pot of those two things. And so you kind of had two different types of people in Roseburg, Oregon, particularly. And in the country, typically more of the logging type. In the city, a lot of people would migrate there from Northern California, some of the hippie type.
I can see that.
Well, the course I worked at was even more interesting because it wasn't super expensive as well relative to what other country clubs were.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people, we had UPS drivers who were members.
Right.
And they were really cool. And then we had the town dentists, the town lawyers, the town judges, your typical country club types mixed in with, people who made a little bit of money and wanted to spend it on golf. They could totally make it work. So yeah, Roseburg was interesting. But anyway, I got onto the raw dairy game. At this point, I was eating pretty clean. And I kind of, in college, my buddy who's now a doctor pointed me towards the paleo diet. What the paleo diet in simple terms basically means you're eating things that you could pick, hunt, or grow.
Yeah.
Right? Very natural foods.
No refined foods.
Yeah, no refined foods. One ingredient items for the most part.
Yeah.
People play with that a little bit and get loosely outside that. But that was kind of largely how I ate for a while.
Did you gnaw on a piece of wheat?
No.
No?
No, I never did. Which I guess if you try to eat wheat without processing it, it's really hard on your stomach.
I bet.
Which tells you something.
Yeah.
But I was like, I wonder if I could do dairy. And I looked up the raw dairy on Craigslist, and there was a advertisement for goat milk. And I was
Black market of milkage?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I found this lady who was dealing goat milk. She was my goat milk dealer. And I rolled up to this property.
We'll just call her Karen. We won't give her.
And it was a happy little farmer property. And this lady was probably 55 years old or 60 years old. And this really was a moment that I remember because she looked like she was 35 or 40. She looked vibrant, healthy, but she was older. You know,
you're getting moderately excited.
Yeah. Yeah, she's probably just outside that window, but she looked really good for her age. And I was like, wow, this is because she's probably eating mostly natural shit. And anyway, the goat milk was really good. And at that time, with the addition to goat milk to my diet, I didn't feel worse. I felt like I could totally have it, digest it, and it could be part of my diet.
Interesting.
So, and then since then, I've tried raw cow's milk, which you could actually buy in Washington and Idaho. You can get raw milk.
Legally?
Yeah. Legally legally you can.
The USDA
it's
is
one of
not
the
gonna
things
come
that
knocking
Washington
down your door
did right.
and take you to jail.
Yeah. I actually, this is a hilarious offshoot, but the first time I tried buying raw milk was from the Amish in Michigan.
Yeah.
And they got real hush-hush about it.
I bet.
they wouldn't sell it to me. Because on my way to work, I would drive past the Amish, and they had a little farm stand, and I would buy my veggies. And I could get a bushel full of veggies for $10 or $15.
Right.
And they were great fresh veggies. And I a couple times asked different members of the family
for some milk.
Yeah, I was like, how about milk? Could I get milk? And you could tell they would just be like, oh, I don't think so. I think we'll get busted for that. So I never got milk from the Amish, which I regret. I wish I could have worked them into a milk deal.
You should have told me you were thinking about joining. Getting the gene pool. Maybe they'd let you have some then.
Yeah, I might have. Yeah.
Then have your little rum Springer and run away and never come back.
Yeah, my little Rumsfeld or whatever it is.
It's rum Springer, bro.
Rum Springer.
It is. It's rum Springer.
So
That's the wildest thing. Yeah, go out in the world, be as crazy as you want. Come back. We'll just pretend like it didn't happen.
yeah, we'll pretend like it didn't happen. I bet you they got stories to tell.
Oh, man.
Probably better stories than trying to buy Amish milk.
Well, I know. Yeah, I know the buddies I've had that have had kids grown up in really strict environments and what happens when they get away from the house versus ones that
Right.
aren't in quite as strict of environment. They tend to be, I don't know, maybe not quite as jump off of the cliff kind of behavior.
Yeah, they get wild.
Yeah, the ones that were super restricted, if I remember right, it was always like whoever's kid was dad like ran the church or whatnot was always the wildest kid. It's like, get out of there, going nuts. Oh, did I kill it?
No, you didn't kill it.
Oh, I almost killed it.
Yeah, but we could use a little more.
A little more stickage. Yeah, a little more putt there. Whoosh.
A little more stickle.
Yeah, burnage. So yeah, that's an interesting caveat. The ones that tend to be in the most strict environment tend to go the craziest.
Yeah,
And they get away from it.
yeah,
And I tried to pay attention to that growing up, and when I was trying to determine how I was going to raise my own kids, and I didn't want to be super strict at all. I was like, no, let's just let them make mistakes when they're at home, let them screw up, talk them through it, let them make their own choices. I'd rather at least have my kid having those situations.
yeah.
Well, I'm still around enough to be able to help guide it a little bit.
Yeah, if they can make mistakes in a controlled environment, that's a lot better than out in the wild.
They're definitely more likely to learn from it in a positive way.
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
It seemed to work out okay.
Yeah. How far, does Lena have much more school left? I don't remember.
She's a junior, college.
Yeah, when does she turn 21?
She'll be done with college, I think. Yeah, because she did that running start, so she's only 18 right now.
Yeah. Running start's actually kind of common in our area. A lot more people do it than.
Yeah, if you're as long as your kid's motivated.
Yeah.
Like your kid has to be like self-motivated to do it. They're not going to hold your hand in that program.
Yeah.
But if your kid gets good grades and doesn't need the teacher's assistance hardly at all, yeah, have them do it for sure.
Yeah.
Shave 2 years off your college and do it while you're in high school.
That single ingredient thing that's like a good framework for eating.
It is.
If you're eating mostly single ingredient items, you're probably doing pretty good.
It is.
Yeah.
There's
And you don't
probably
have
more
to
than one ingredient in here, though.
Yeah.
But
But if you compare these
it's
things,
a short list compared to most
Yeah.
supplemental energy drink things. It
This
really
actually,
is.
let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 ingredients. That's pretty wild.
That's low for a drink. Yeah. I should round up something else and compare it. See what
Yeah,
it is,
it'd
but I
be
guarantee
15 or
it's
20 in a lot of
probably.
them. Yeah.
Honestly, I wonder if I have a different energy drink in the fridge I can pull. I guarantee it's a lot.
Yeah, that's
Got-
okay. We
yeah.
get it. So we're kind of on the eve of bow launch,
We
and
are.
you're mixing up your little recipe for how you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. How's that coming for you? You think you're going to revise your program much?
Well, we're going to revise it a decent amount. There were a couple of things that I really wanted to change. I felt pretty solid about it, but I showed it to you, and you had an opinion or two that I may have to take into account before I finalize. But we're going to do away with the straight subjective split and straight numeric split. It'll be a 100-point score total.
I like the 100-point score total. I think that makes it very easy.
Well, yeah, so out of 100, right?
Yeah, it's
So
similar
it's
to your
easy
high school tests or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like 75 is.
Yeah.
whatever.
So certain categories will be weighed heavier than others, but they'll all get its own weight. We have 10 categories right now. We might trim it down to 9. And we are going to measure all the same stuff we measured last year. We're going to measure riser length. We're going to measure reflex geometry. We're going to measure brace height. We're going to measure axle to axle length. We're going to add load off point, which is where the string lobes off the cam at full draw at 30 inches. So you'll know the number that should really matter instead of, axle to axle.
Explain that more.
So the load off point is if you pull the bow back, where the string is leaving the cam at is giving you your string angle,
Yes.
right? So if you measure that distance and compare that distance bow to bow to bow, you're more likely going to find a bow that feels the same, right? So because so much of what
Because your riser
changes-
length or your axle could be different with different string angles.
Yeah, certain limbs flex more than others. Certain cams are bigger than others. They load off at certain points. And what you're trying to find when you find a string angle that's comfortable to you, you'll frequently get somebody that tries something that has a different string angle and swears the draw length's wrong. Well, that's not what's wrong. The string angle is different, so your head position feels different. Thus, you think the string's in a different spot. So if you measure the load off point, it's giving you a real accurate comparative of how long that bow actually is at draw.
Yeah.
So, and it's the way, personally, it's the way every manufacturer should measure their bow. They shouldn't measure their axle to axle at all because it's a variable that changes too much from bow to bow. I mean, just the, if your cams were, 3 inches in circumference versus 2 inches in circumference, axle to axle length's an inch or 2 inches different. Right? So that's got to take into account too, which is why measuring axle to axle length doesn't really work as a tangible measurement of what's what. So that's a new measurement I'm adding this year to see if we get a little bit better feedback. And I'm going to try it here as soon as we're done, but I've got 3 separate chronographs that I'm going to use all at the same time. So you can sit there and argue that one of my chronographs is wrong, but you probably can't argue that all 3 of them are equally wrong.
So what's the addition to the Caldwell and the Garmin?
So I'm going to use the Caldwell, the Garmin, and the Lab, assuming it works.
Okay.
So I'm going to shoot everything at like 10 yards for speed instead of up close. But I'm still going to measure it, the distance out of the bow that's appropriate to measure it with Crony.
Yeah.
But it's traveling, so I can set up each different chronograph to pick it up as it goes by. And I will also measure... Hang on, sorry. I'll call him back. I will also measure the sound at the same time, but the sound will be measured in a separate room as it goes into the other room. So it should all work well for being able to tangibly test all those things at one time. The only hiccup will be how you're seeing all of them, or if I just call each one out as opposed to seeing it on film. Be a little better to see it on film, but I mean, I don't know if I'm going to set up like 3 different GoPros, measure each one and chop each one up. And,
no.
Well, I mean, I don't want to have Lena kill me when it comes down to editing them. There's only so many angles, but
yeah.
Shoot them all that way. And I'm going to still go the 350, 450, 550. I thought about switching to a 650 instead of a 550 because 650 is the bone breaking threshold, and a heavy arrow person is probably shooting that more than 550 would be common. So I'm contemplating just ditching the 550 and going straight to a 650 because I think it's probably a more relevant measure of what someone would care to know how fast it is. And I am going to test them at 28 and 30 this year instead of just 30. So, and I think that's it.
Sounds like a little more work for you.
It'll be a little more, but I've also, I wanted to make the videos just a little longer and chop them up a lot more. So shorten the in-between stuff, but put more information in it. So, it's going to be more work, but honestly, by the time I got the flow of everything, I was usually only spending about 30 minutes of actual shooting time.
Yeah.
With each bow.
And at the end of the season, you're going to have reviewed, 20, 30 bows?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that depends on how many bows that get released and what have you. They don't change the cheap bows as often as they change the expensive bows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet you it gets 30 bows in the mix total, maybe 40, because you got target bows, you got hunting bows, all that, and pull all those tangibles off it. Oh, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the weight with the board, not in my hand. So instead of pulling it back with a hand scale, I'm going to use the scale on the draw board, so there's no physical hand influence, because I would see a little bit of variance in that periodically too, and I want to try to eliminate as many, complainties as you can get, I guess. Every year I do take the criticisms to heart of what people feel are inaccurate in what I'm doing, so I try to find a way to improve upon it, i.e. the criticism that the chronograph's wrong. Okay, well, here's 3 different chronographs at the same time. So kind of hard to criticize that, right? So that I did get a lot of people wishing that I had tested them at a shorter draw length. It's like, all right, well, it doesn't take that long to do. Now, I probably won't shoot all 3 different weight arrows at a second one. I'll probably just pick one weight, and probably be the 450 because that's the most common weight somebody uses.
Middle of the road.
So, and at that point, if I'm just doing it that, maybe I'd even test it shorter. Maybe I'd test the 26. I haven't 100% pulled the trigger on what I'm going to do, but most modern bows built today will do 26, 28, and 30 on the same cam, right, without too much of an issue. I would rather test an individual brand on their let-off changes and what that does to speed than shooting each one at all the different let-offs. That seems like anytime I ever tested it, it wasn't significant. The most I ever saw was 3 feet. The most. And in general, I would typically test it at the let-off the majority of people are going to shoot it at.
Yeah, and different brands have they allow you different let-offs. Do you think, I thought one of them was only 80% last year. Was that Bowtech?
I think Bowtech had I thought they were 85.
Yeah, but it was like one. It wasn't.
Yeah, they're not adjustable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is nice to have adjustable holding weight or let-off.
Well, that's the hunting bows. The target bows are adjustable.
Yeah.
But the hunting bows were not. They were just fixed.
Yeah, that is a nice little variable to be able to play with, because I think a lot of people will find that there's a sweet spot where they hold their bow better.
Yeah, but the other thing you're going to find when you're playing with that let-off is it actually changes your draw length.
Yes.
So, is that making your bow go faster or slower? 2. And how much shorter or longer is your bow in that scenario?
Yeah.
Is it now no longer within the draw length spectrum that they say it is? So there's variables with all that stuff, right? So you kind of got to pick one and say this is the measurable of what we're checking everything at, and then you can play with it outside of that.
Right.
But,
yeah. No, for you, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying from a consumer perspective, like once you have a bow in your hands, it's nice to be able to play with that let off or holding weight, same thing, used interchangeably.
Yeah.
To be able to find out where the bow holds the best for you.
Yeah.
That's one thing I really appreciated about shooting this Elite over the past year was having that ability to kind of micro tune and figure out where it holds the best.
Well, and that got really common last year. Like there was multiple bows that did that.
Yeah, which surprised me when I shot the Bowtech a little bit in the beginning of the year that wasn't adjustable.
Yeah.
It almost threw me for a loop. It wasn't even a question I considered asking, really.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I guess you can crank your poundage up and down, but you just can't customize that.
Well, that was the other thing that you saw a lot too last year was 1/4 inch increments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's a continued trend.
Yeah, I know certain brands aren't going to do it, or it would be like manufacturing suicide, i.e., Matthews. Everything's a replaceable module.
So, but if you're a Matthews person and you want that 1/4 inch, you're gonna put twists in your cables.
You twist your string or twist your cable, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Twisting your string would shorten it. Twisting your cables would lengthen it. Twisting your cables would increase your poundage. Twisting your string would lower your poundage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's achievable. It's just a little more of a workaround. Yeah. But I really think after I'm going to, whatever the next bow I shoot is, I'll play with the draw length. But I think I'm 28 3/4.
Yeah?
I think that's it.
It's funny how time goes on. Your draw length keeps getting shorter.
Well, it was 29, and then it was 28.5, but I think it's right in the middle.
Think so?
Because on 28.5, I do look a little bit scrunched up. Are you sure you didn't start at
29.5? Like
I
way
started
back
at 29.5, yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
so it was 29.5. Then it was 29. Then it was 28.5. 28 3/4 could be. But that's also congruent to what bow you're shooting and what they actually measure at.
And the string angle.
And the string angle, right?
Yeah.
That's got a lot to do with it. You find a string angle that you really like, that feels really comfortable at your draw length, and it's very hard to walk away from that. And once again, that's where the load off point measurement, which is probably supposed to be called something other than that. I just made up that name, but it'll stick. Load off point. That's a tangible number that's going to be super important.
Is there a load on point?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited to get started on that. In fact, I'll be getting started on that this afternoon. I got all that stuff set up and got my place cleaned up and ready to. I've got 2 bows to test that are able to be released in like.
Can you talk about the brand or no?
Yeah, when this comes out, this will already be out.
Yeah.
It'll be Bear. In fact.
Oh, Fred Bear.
Yeah, in fact.
Who owns Fred Bear?
Escalade Sports.
Okay, it's owned by a conglomerate.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But what I could do actually, because I've got them sitting right over there and I haven't opened them yet. You could bring them over here and open them up and take a look at them.
Yeah, if you can.
I can, because when we publish this will already be out. So hang on, let me grab them real quick.
Are these
little teaser for you?
A little teaser live on the pod. Speaking of live on the pod, I thought that was pretty cool when Dan called in.
Yeah.
And I could see having a segment where we do live from the field and having somebody call in, tell us a little hunting story, a little hunting update. You know, random people who are watching. I think that'd be cool. Let us know what you guys think about that. I think live from the field would be fun. Tell us a little exaggerated story about how good or bad your hunting is and how good or bad, your hunting buddies stink. You're sleeping in a tent next to them.
Friends, countrymen, testicle eaters, thanks for your support on the podcast. We really appreciate it. Like and subscribe wherever you're following. Leave us a review. That helps us more than you know. And we have a little coupon code for old Jocko Go here. It's called Josh and Tim. Save you some money on these things. And I have this little website called podiumarcher.com for all your archery needs. $99 and up is free shipping. And use coupon code TimC to save a little money. And let's get back to the pod. Yeah, there's almost always good, enjoyable stories. And some of the off ones kind of go away after, 3 to 6 months. But if you're still in the field, it'd be fresh.
Yeah, it'd be
Okay,
fresh.
so this one is the Bear Persist 33 in stone.
Bear Persist. Is this
Bear
flagship
Persist.
or?
These are both flagships as far as
Okay.
I'm aware.
That's cool.
There's a hat for you.
Yeah, Bear's pretty interesting.
Okay, what do I see? What do I see here? If we planned this right, we could do this with all of them as we go. I didn't think of that, but
A little live on the pod.
yeah. Then link the review down below. There you go. Okay, so this is a Persist 33.
Looks like the same strings from the
Yeah.
years past.
Look like the same Bear brand strings. It's got the EKO cam on it.
What's that little soft patch on by where the
Here?
no on your thumb there?
It looks like a pad that sits over the riser.
That's nice.
It's
right?
integrated to it. It bolts on and bolts off, so you could get down to the bare metal. It does have a rear base plate for integration, front mount for integration. Looks like there's more cuts in the riser. It feels lighter. Let's see what this little spec tag says. I haven't looked at the specs yet. I'll have to look at those this afternoon. But
33 is a fantastic hunting rig size for a lot of people.
So this is a Persist 33 with a 33 axle to axle, 6 1/4 brace height, 60 pound or 70 pound peak weight, 26.5 to 30.5, 340 foot a second, and 4 let-offs having 75, 80, 85, and 90%.
Yeah. So that's 3 more than my Bowtech had last year.
Yeah. So now there's a
It's got that little loop on it, probably for in and
yeah.
out
So
of the
there's a
tree
couple
stand.
of these would fall under the category of features. So I have a features category and an integration category. Features are things that are specific just to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So like this little loop for grabbing onto your tow rope for pulling your bow up and down in a tree stand, that's unique to Bear.
Are those dampeners
There's-
under the
Where are you pointing?
under the on your
Here?
hand there? Yeah.
Yeah, those are dampeners. That's also unique to Bear, their own little dampener. That's their limb dampener, but it's not. I wouldn't call this unique to Bear,
Right.
even though it's their own thing.
I like that padding on the riser for a hunter. I mean,
Yeah, that
you
would
know,
be a Bear specific thing. So that would also hit, like they'll do good in the features category because they do lots of little quirky things for their own bow. Their wrist strap or wrist sling is integrated into their riser with a set screw in it here. So it honestly works really well. Outside of that, on the features thing,
that's a good little first overview.
yeah, I mean they've got some
Anything going
decent
on with the
integration.
cam for tuning side to side
Spacers, baby.
spacers?
Crude. Same old crude system, it appears. I don't see any change in it. Doesn't look any different. And I don't see a proprietary V-bar option on the side. And their 2-piece quiver option, there's a hole down here, but I don't see like a specific cutout. So I'm guessing they probably don't offer it, but I could be wrong.
Is
I'm not
the
seeing
the
one.
cable or the roller guard, is that different?
Yeah, this is adjustable in and out and left and right.
It looks
So
a
you
little
can actually-
different than years past.
No, I think they've made this for a couple of years.
Okay.
But yeah, it's fully adjustable, so you can move it in and out and left and
And
right.
that can change your lean a little bit.
That can change your lane a little bit, so you
Yeah.
could call that a tuning feature, but it's also increasing or decreasing the gap for your fletching, so you may end up in a position where you can't get your fletching by the cables. It's a good looking bow. Definitely some more meat cut out of it. I mean, they're trying to get it lighter, but it's still got some good weight to it. Here, you can grab it.
Yeah.
See what you think feel wise.
Similar grip to
Similar grip to years
what they used
past,
in the
which
past. But when you
to
pull
the-
that off, underneath is actually typically pretty nice.
yeah, and to average Joe Blow, they probably really like that grip. Like that's a very
At least it's not soft. No, this might be a little different than years past.
oh, it's harder and it's more rounded, but it's still got like a rise and transition. There's not just a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a little more of a contour, and I could see where your average guy would really like that grip.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, let's rip open the next one.
All right.
See what we see. It says made in the USA. I wonder where their components come from.
Not the USA.
Yeah. What an exciting time of year, man.
Yeah, it's always fun this time of year.
Things moving, things shaking. I hope that's on camera.
Shaking, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did Bear do for you this year in your sales? You ever sold a couple on the internet,
We sold a
right?
ton of Alaskan XTs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alaskan XTs did really well. Adapt Pluses did pretty good, which I went back and when I was trying to assess how we were going to rank speed, because I want to give speed a relatively good size category because it's a hard thing to achieve speed. It really is. And to constantly be pushing it faster and faster every year. So I want to give a decent amount of credit to that. So I went back and watched the notable videos that I could remember last year for speed or lack thereof, and the Adapt Plus is the slowest thing I tested. And I tested entry-level kitty bows. Like it was in the high twos. It was the slowest thing I tested.
Well, what I'll say on that the Alaskan XT, that was the bow I took to San Antonio with me. It was very stable, man. Like, very stable, solid feeling platform. And at the price point, I had a lot of people ask me in the DMs or the comments, should I get an Alaskan XT or should I get a Dart and Consequence? And here's kind of my summary answer. I told most people, if you're okay with the price point, go Dart and Consequence because it's a heavier duty build. I just think that if you're looking down the road 3 to 5 years, that's probably going to last a little longer. And 29.5-inch axle is pretty sweet with the brace height and the speed. So I told most people if they're okay with that, go to that. But the Alaskan XT, I was so confident in telling people that's a great bow to get them into archery, and it holds really well. Yeah, so both great bows, Dart and Consequence and Alaskan XT.
Yeah, no, they're phenomenal. And like I said, we sold a ton of XTs. We still do.
Yeah.
Like we sold one yesterday.
Yep.
They're a good unit. So this is the Legend
30.
30 axle to axle. Once again, a lot of meat cut out of the riser. Integration front and rear, machined integration, not bolted on. So I'm assuming that bow we just looked at, part of the reason it was bolted on is that maybe it's to be able to put the different widths on there so you could do the ham ski versus the QAD if you wanted. But yeah, that's machine cut. Doesn't look like your let-off's adjustable unless there's an extra part that goes in here on this. And this is a broad draw length adjustable bow. So this is an 18 to 30 inch. So this is going to probably be a price point featured bow. And I could probably look it up on my phone if you want to eyeball this for a little bit and comment on what you think. See if I can find the spec sheets. So
I'd really like to draw it back. The this size of hunting bow, I think it's got to be the most common hunting bow size, right? Like that 30-ish.
yeah, 30 axle to axle.
Yeah. And that's probably the size I would hunt with for a lot of things if I didn't anticipate shooting, long ways. And I think, sometimes we talk about shooting long ways on here. And bow hunting, the goal is always to get close, right?
Yep.
We always want to get as close as possible. That's what makes bow hunting special is you're close to your game. You have to be like really in tune with everything that's going on. But sometimes if you can make a little further shot, that can be an advantage.
Well, for sure. Like there's definitely, for me, I frequently am just trying to determine which one's going to be better at distance.
Yeah.
Really. But I mean, some of the big advantages to shorter bows and tree stands and ground blinds are very relevant, but the more time goes on, the more people who evolve in the sport and want to get better tend to gravitate away from the shorter.
Yeah. Yep. I wouldn't have got my New Mexico or Nevada mule deer without being confident shooting a little longer ways. Like it wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have taken the shot. I wouldn't have made the shot. So, yeah.
Okay, here we go. I think I got it. Oop. I hate when they send me this stuff the wrong way. Okay, so that's a Legend 30.
Yeah,
So
Bear
that
Legend
bow
30.
is.
And it's a
It
package
looks
with
like.
the 4-pin
Looks like.
sight.
I'm assuming this is a package price. I could be wrong. That bow's $529.
Yeah. It looks like a continuation of like the Adapt model.
Well, yeah, but probably. Well, the big thing with the Adapt is it doesn't have half that draw length. Like that is a kid's bow to an adult's bow growth, right?
Yeah.
It's like off of the Matthews
This is like what my nephew.
mission line creation, like
Yeah.
when they first came out with that, where you had massive growth. And here's the chart for it. Hang on, let me get it to pull up to where I can read it because I'm blind now. So at 18 inches, the bow like only peaks at 44 pounds. So you got to get all the way up to, there you go, 27 and a half inches before it'll actually hit the 70-pound mark in that weight, which that's part of that module pushing on that cable. As you rotate that module, it drives the cable away from the axle and it pushes the peak weight down. So it's a way of, basically, if you're a parent thinking of getting your kid a bow, right? And you take this bow, for example, and let's say they're an 18-inch draw length, which this is probably a lot of bow for a kid with an 18-inch draw length. But you take the puller off, you take the stabilizer off, drop some of that extra weight out. There's a lot of meat cut out of that riser, so it's not going to be that heavy. I don't have the stat numbers on it at the moment, but we're going to weigh it. And by the time this is out, you can go back and review the video and find out.
Yeah.
But it says the Legend XR 10 turnouts, because you can turn those limb bolts out 10 turns. It'll go down to 12 pounds. Somewhere between 12 and 16 pounds.
That's
without
incredible.
peak at. And almost any new kid can pull 12 to 16 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that draw length spectrum, right, and like every inch, or is this half inches? Yeah, every half inch that it goes up 1 pound in peak, right? So if you're 18 and a half inches, it's going to go to 17 pounds. If you're 19 inches, it's going to go to 18 pounds on the minimum high end, right? So I mean, growth-wise, these bows have always been so incredible. The negative to those things traditionally is that they're not fast at all. They're usually really slow. Because to design something that has this much draw length adjustability within it, it usually drives out all the efficiency of the cam system, right? So you end up with a bow that's like super adjustable, but not super fast. But the speed test will tell us that. But if this is a package for $529, which I'm assuming it is,
Yeah.
you're getting an integrated front and an integrated rear style rest, a roller slide, stabilizer, quiver, wrist sling for $529 with a peep and a loop. Like, I don't know how you're beating that.
Yeah, that's what my nephew should be using, is something like that.
I mean, Bear has traditionally done a really good job of winning the entry-level price game, which it's a hard field to fight in, right? Because they're not making any money.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the Consequence before. They had to redesign and redo the Consequence because they weren't making any money. And that was a $700 bow.
Let me show you something really quick.
Show me something.
Look at that.
Ooh.
See the girl holding that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's a great gal. I didn't ask her if I could share publicly what this elk was or whatever, but looking at a really nice elk, and I said, out of curiosity, what kind of poundage, arrow weight, and broadhead are you using? Because I'm always really curious with gals. I don't get to hear a lot of those experiences.
If you go off of most of the feedback you would get, you would just tell a woman not to hunt elk. Right?
Yeah.
So what's she using?
So she used 59 pounds, pretty strong. VPA three blade fixed broadhead, 407 grain arrow. And I didn't get like the penetration report, and I will, but that's a grown ass elk sitting on the ground.
Yeah, that's a mature bull shot by would you get what her draw length was?
No, but
that's relevant.
It is relevant, yeah. But I would guess it to be 27-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, 60 pounds, 27 inches, 400 grain arrow. Killed a mature bull elk with that.
Yeah.
Which that was, if you ever go back and listen to Dudley's series on Knock On his the Knock On podcast, there was a period of time in there where he was interviewing Ranch Fairy and a couple of things around that. And I want to say he interviewed Ranch Fairy, which he got a little beat up for the way he interviewed Ranch Fairy, because I was left with the impression, and I think a lot of other people were, that he really didn't want to do that. Like, he didn't want to have to interview him because he didn't give him a lot of credibility, which I get, the people who are in the industry and have been in the industry a long time not giving the guy any credibility, and I don't think that's super fair, to be honest, because he's simply trying to find the best validity to the consumer as possible. But the next one he had on was Joel Maxfield, who has been with Matthews forever. And Joel does fun little tests and things trying to disprove the weight versus the bow puts out a certain amount of energy, and the arrow weight you put through it, as long as it's adequately spined, really doesn't change how much it's going to penetrate. And his wife hunts all the time and shoots, 50 to 60 pounds and not anything over 400 grains. And she's sailing through everything she's shooting at. So it's kind of like, that's where a good portion of Maxfield's philosophy comes through, is like, I've seen this work really well without a lot of energy. So what are we doing here? And it still goes back to what one person's saying is true and the other person's saying is true, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely the Broadhead, mostly the Broadhead. And what she just said was a VPA, which is a lead cut style one-piece machined machine steel Broadhead.
Very clean looking. I've looked at those before and just thought,
great.
What a great, simple looking, straight up 3-blade. It's got good, whatever you call that angle. It's not steep. It's not squatty.
Gradual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's part of that 2.6 mechanical advantage, which almost no broadheads really have. Like very few broadheads maintain that level of angle, but a lot of the modern stuff today is really squatty, and the transition in between, like if you look at what we made in the 90s to the early 2000s, their blade angle was probably like 1.5, 1.6 mechanical advantage, maybe 1.8, somewhere in there. And today's mechanical advantage looks like 1 or 1.2. Like the broadhead's only a little bit longer than it is wide. And that's really hard on penetration and drag, where VPAs are more of a gradual angle. If for those of you who don't know what a VPA looks like, it looks a lot like a Montec, but it's not molded.
Yep.
It's machined.
Yep.
It's all machined tool steel.
I'm not trying to knock Tooth of the Arrow, but I've had a lot of people mention to me, man, Tooth of the Arrow flies like darts. And it's like, yeah, it should fly like a dart.
Yeah,
it's a pretty small broadhead.
It's a field point with blades.
Yeah.
It's very short.
It's not huge.
Yeah, once again, your mechanical advantage there is probably like a 1.
Yeah.
Right, and that's something that really gets overlooked, and I think I'd like to see this whole penetration argument shift more into a mechanical advantage argument. I really would, because I think that's where the majority of the difference is in this. So I'd really love to see that and believe that. And that is a head that if a lady was looking for a broadhead to hunt with, that's another one that I would recommend, because it's got a little bit more of a mechanical advantage than the average one does. And they're still really solid, and they're machined.
And they're fairly priced.
Yeah, they're not bad. They're
for being machined out of one chunk
they're
of...
$20 a head-ish.
Yeah.
Very variable in there. And you're seeing more and more of that type of a head too. But VPA makes like a bunch of different guys broadheads.
Yeah, they seem like they're good at manufacturing.
They're a manufacturer. Yeah. I actually, his name's Jeff Singer. Actually, I've had multiple conversations with him, and we're working on a project together right now for something else. So it's kind of randomly interesting that VPA was the broadhead she was shooting. But that's a company that doesn't get enough credit for their validity in this industry and how good of a product they really make. Yeah. And still American made, I might add. Like the broadhead portion of what they do is just like kind of like a side pet project. It really is. Like it's a business that they try to keep functioning, but he has multiple businesses, and that's just kind of like I like archery and whatnot. So and we're trying to keep this machine shop going well. Yeah. So it's a surprising deal, and there's like I said, there's definitely something to the mechanical advantage portion of this argument. And unfortunately it's like a side note in the argument and not the leader of the argument. And I really personally believe it should be the leader of the argument difference. I really do believe that.
Oh, I think you're, I'm not going to argue with you on that. I like to argue with you about stuff, but not on that. Cause that's going to be like any engineer that wanted to hop into this conversation would be like, yeah, duh. You know what I mean? Yeah, duh. Because it affects how a blade angle is going to go through something. I mean, a blade angle is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, any knife maker is probably going to, like a knife maker, I'm sure most of those guys would be like, yeah, duh. You know?
Yeah, there's a reason we use a fillet knife to cut big pieces with.
Right.
It's big, elongated.
Okay, let me
gradual
ask you
angle
this.
change.
Speaking of fillet knives, so
Flay it up, bro.
I seen someone, and I don't know if this person particularly was maybe trying to get some product promotion in, or if this was how they felt was the best way to get the back quarters off an animal. But they're like, yeah, I love having this longer knife in the field with me. Look how I can work this back ham. And they were working the back ham from the like the spine side. Mm-hmm. Now, and I keep in mind, I haven't been around a lot of people processing their own game. It's mostly just me in the field or, a few friends. But I've always just went from the inside. I've always found the ball joint and then just filleted up the ball joint and the rear quarter peels off. Is there an advantage or a reason a person would want to go in from the other side?
Are you by chance talking about Dudley in this? Because I could have sworn I just watched a little clip of his come by where he was cutting around the back side of the leg into the spine.
Yeah.
For a longer blade. Was that who it was?
Does it matter?
No, I was just curious because it was like, did you see the same thing I saw?
Yeah.
And we didn't talk about it. But yeah, I personally haven't done that, but I imagine that's probably a lot more of a common protocol when it comes to an animal like an elk because you've got a longer cut to go through and you can't just sit there and hold the leg up while you're cutting deer and stuff. It's pretty easy to just roll the leg back and cut it apart. I think you have to cut it from the backside with an elk.
But you wouldn't have to.
Well, it depends on if you're by yourself or if you got a buddy.
I've definitely done it by myself without doing it that way, but that might be an easier way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
if you follow that,
I've seen Drew do it one time.
Yeah.
And my buddy Lucas in Nevada did that to my deer. He went in from the outside, and I was like, whoa, easy there, Nelly. What are you doing? And he's like, no, you can do it this way. And I let him do it. And yeah, you can shear it that way too. But I've always just thought going in from the inside of the ball joint is just such an easy way to fillet back. But I mean, I'm not a butcher either, so.
It is. I would think that would work really well. I haven't done it that way, but I don't know why you couldn't. Because, if you think about it, you're cutting the whole backside of what would still be attached.
Right.
And then you flip the front open and cut across the front, and it's pop right off. So it might be a more effective way to do it, and that's where a longer blade would come in handy because you would need a longer blade for that. Where if you come in from the inside, you don't ever really need a long blade.
Yeah. No, you don't.
No, you can go thin and small and easy peasy.
Which is why, for most game, what do you think an ideal blade length is? Like 3 inches?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3.5, something like that.
Yeah. And even if you're gunning an animal, because you don't want to go too deep either, because you risk poking something.
No, I've cut apart every animal I've ever used with probably a 3 to 4 inch blade max. I've never used anything longer.
Are you doing most stuff gutless now, or?
It just depends. Sometimes I'll gut them out if I want to bring the animal back whole. So if I want to take it out whole, I'll spill the guts out of it just to get rid of that mess and get it out of it as fast as possible, and then take it back to somewhere I can hang it up and cape it.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna cut it up in the field, I just gutless it. It's easy to do. There's no hard thing about it.
Yeah.
And part of that would boil down to what kind of mount you're trying to do, because sometimes you don't want to cut up certain areas, and to gutless correctly or with the most ease, you cut backwards. So you're cutting down the spine and up the front. But anytime you do a shoulder mount, they typically want you to split the back up to the head anyway. And that's the direction you would cut on a shoulder mount. But if, say it was a bear and you wanted to do a rug, you wouldn't want to cut through the back. You want to cut through the belly.
Right.
Right. So you fillet everything out from the front,
mm-hmm.
which you could still gutless, but usually the premise of gutless is to not get your meat in the dirt. And if you cape up the front, then you're still trying to cut everything out by keeping the cape underneath you and rolling it. And anytime you ever deal with bear, it's always oily and messy.
Yeah.
That would be difficult.
I think the one thing that always scares people from going gutless,
mm-hmm.
and the question I've seen the most often is, what about the tenderloins?
You can get them out. It's easy.
Oh, I know, yeah. So basically, if the tenderloins, everyone wants the tenderloins, why wouldn't you want the tenderloins? But if you're going gutless, you just make a little insertion up by the spine,
mm-hmm.
and then you just reach your hand in, find them, and you might be able to work them out with your hand, or, just slit a little bit off and peel them back.
Yeah, well, Bobby's...
is that how you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, Bobby's antelope, for example, we did his gutless.
Yep.
But I've been, since my dad died, I've taken the heart out of every animal and eaten it. And he wasn't going to get it. And I just grabbed a saw and rolled it back over, because he Texas heart shot it. So it's like, I don't want to open this thing up. And I just went right to the breast and cut 4 ribs apart and pulled it open and grabbed the heart right out of it. Still didn't open the gut bag. You didn't need to get in there. And then we found out it was officially a Texas heart shot, because it was sliced. The heart was sliced in half.
Yeah, and that's the only part of like if you want to choose to go gutless or not, most people, if you go gutless, you're going to have to sacrifice the heart and the liver, which is like, do you want that thing or not? Now, I like having the heart. I'm not so into liver. So I can go either way depending on where I get the animal. But I've done most of my recent animals gutless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a better way to go, really.
Do you like liver?
No.
Yeah.
No. I haven't found a way to eat that where I tolerated it.
Yeah.
And the whole heart thing is an homage to my father because he always ate the heart.
I do like the heart, though. I think it tastes
well,
good.
yeah. Since I've started doing it, I like it.
Yeah.
I really do. But it wasn't something I ever ate before. Like the concept was just like, "Eeh." And then as soon as my dad died, I was like, get the heart out of that thing. I'm going to eat it.
You ever do the testicles?
No.
You
no,
should.
I ain't gay.
Man, there's probably cowboys all over the West.
I don't swing that way, son.
Eating testes.
Would that up your testosterone?
Do you know in Montana there's a thing called the Testicle Festival?
I'm very aware there's a thing called the Testicle Festival in Montana.
Yeah.
Where's that at in Montana? That's somewhere in Montana.
I think it's just a little bit west of Missoula or east of Missoula.
Yeah, I'm trying
near
to
the
remember.
highway. It's near the river.
There's a town or something that it's held in.
Yeah, but there's the river that flows out there.
Mm-hmm. The Missouri.
Nope.
What is it?
It's like an hour west of Missoula. It's one of the most famous rivers for fly fishing.
Blackfoot River?
Nope. It's further west. Yeah, but anyway, I've
Is it the one that cuts across I-90 like 17,000 times?
No, that's the Clark Fork.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another one that flows into the Clark Fork a little further. But yeah, the Testicle Festival. And I've heard they're not bad. Yeah.
Anytime you got to say it's not bad, it's bad.
Well, I bet you they're better than liver.
I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah.
I imagine for me, a lot of the stuff boils down to texture, not taste. I mean, taste matters, but I'm more of a texture sensitive person, and I
heard
bet
they
you
can
that's
be a
just
little
terrible,
chewy.
terrible texture. I
Little
almost guarantee
crunchy.
it.
Yeah. But there might be some essential vitamins in there.
Right?
That's why I think the Liver King got jacked.
Yeah, you could be right. Could be right there.
Testicles, probably.
For sure.
Definitely not HGH. Well, maybe we'll do a live testicle
No.
sample.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. We're
A little
not doing
hot
that.
sauce?
No, I don't care what you put on it.
Put
I'm
them
not
on
eating
an
it.
oyster with some blue cheese, maybe?
You can live test it, and I'll comment on how stupid it is.
Yeah. Anyway, great podcast, passion-filled podcast. Fires out. That's the pod.
That's the pod.
Hunt hard. Have a great time in the field. Enjoy this time with the people you're hunting with, and yeah.
Friends don't let friends eat testicles.